Welcome back to The Spotlight. I'm here with television production manager Josh Maxwell. He's going to tell us a little bit about his recent trip to Europe. Josh, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you. So first off, you're a graduate student. You went to Europe over the summer. Tell us how it happened.
Well, I was in a master's class. I finished up my master's at Murray State University, and I was in a master's class last fall, and they came in and asked us anybody wanted to go maybe study abroad with a program that's called CCSA, Cooperative Center for Study Abroad.
Okay.
And I just went to the meeting and figured I would check it out because I obviously couldn't pay for it by myself.
Right.
Realized that I could get scholarship and grant money, and actually did. And signed up, went home and asked my wife if I could go.
I hope so.
I had to ask permission.
All right.
And the stipulation was that I took her back one day, and I'll definitely want to go back to
Awesome.
London.
How long was the trip? How long were you there for?
I was in London with a photography course for, let's see, it was July 11th. We left on the 10th, got there on the 11th, and stayed until August the 11th, came back. So went from Nashville to Detroit, and then from Detroit to London.
Okay.
And
5 weeks. I mean, you obviously did the tourist stuff. Tell us, what was your impression? When people see London and Europe, they see some of the standard sites. Did you do a lot of that, or?
Yeah, I wasn't really interested in a whole lot of that. But some of the things that you had to do because you had to, because you were there.
Right.
So there were certain things. Of course, Big Ben,
right.
In Parliament, and Westminster Abbey, St. Peter's and Paul's Cathedral, things like that you just go to see.
Did you do the Beatles walk?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Which one were you?
Of course. I was Paul. No shoes. I took my shoes off.
Nice work.
I took my shoes and socks off. I couldn't get he had a cigarette in his hand. I was going to try to get a cigarette from somebody, but they call them fags there. So nobody understood me. I was like, can I get a cigarette from somebody? I was like, I don't smoke. I just want to have it.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
What was your favorite of all the traditional tourist attractions?
Well, in London, the British Museum was my favorite. I went there, and it took me 2 days to go through everything. They had a crystal skull that is obviously a fake, but there's a long story about that.
Right.
They had one of the crystal skulls there. They had. There's only one other place in the world with more Egyptian artifacts than the British Museum, and that's Egypt.
Right.
So I love the British Museum because they have everything from anything you could possibly want. I got to see some things with like the Philistines back before Jesus' time, and I took a picture of this Roman sword that was in like 23 or 30 AD, which was, that's,
Yeah. Now, as far as the photography part, you mentioned taking pictures. There's a pretty big misconception about what pub life is, and I've seen it documented. Photographs that look wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what pub life culture is, and what's the difference between what we consider a pub and what they consider a pub?
Yeah. Well, the English are very in the South where we live. We're walking down the street. We'll wave to somebody we don't know, and be okay with it. When I first got back, I went driving around just to chill out and see the country again. And these people were just waving at me, and I was waving. Had no clue who they were. You don't do that in London. When you're walking down the street, they're very private with their lives, and so you don't talk to anybody. You don't make eye contact on the buses, or you try not to, unless you're going to say "excuse me" or something. And or on the subway, which is called the Tube, you try not to make eye contact. They're very private people, unless you're in the pub. The pub life, it's not like a bar, because when you say pub, I know that probably my grandparents or my parents would think, oh, bar. Right. The English do drink quite a bit more than we do. It's more socially acceptable to drink over there than it is possibly over here. That's a matter of opinion, though.
Right, right, of course.
But you don't go to a pub just to drink. They have games there. They have books there. They bring their children there. We come home, and in general, we come home, watch 5 o'clock news, eat dinner, have a little bit of family time or whatever, go to bed. They go to the pub. That's their social networking. That's how they do it. You could be a person that makes $5 an hour or a person that makes $100 an hour. When you go into the pub, you're all equal.
Right. What was that like, being an American, kind of, a student, someone who's looking through a camera's eye, obviously? What was that like to experience that? Were they accepting of you? Were you part of that culture, or?
Yeah. For the most part, Well, the number one question I got asked was, so who are you going to vote for with this political thing? And I'm just like, no. And Obama made an appearance in London while we were over there, and it was just like, man, I don't want to talk about politics.
Right.
One of the biggest disappointments that I had was I went over to London, and it's, you know, home of the Beatles. Hendrix got his start there. Clapton, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. I heard American music on the radio.
That must have been surreal.
I was so mad. I heard one Beatles song, and that's it. The whole time I was there. I mean, when I went to Scotland, I went into a pub, and there was Michael Jackson on the radio, and I was like, what? No.
From a student's perspective, you're obviously taking these pictures. You're there to learn. What are you going to do with the information you collected?
Well, as a master's student, I got 3 hours of credit for going over there for the photography course.
Right.
The reason that I took the photography course, well, two reasons. One, I signed up for a mass media with an emphasis in London class. It didn't make because not enough people signed up for it. They had this photography course. I'd already paid all my bills, could go, and I was like, well, can I take this? They said yes. So I took it on a standpoint of, I'm a videographer. I want to become more aware of my camera shots and things like that, and composition, and photography is like piano and guitar. It's music,
but not the same.
But it's not the same, you know. And that's what I took it for. I'm going to do probably some professional development here at the community college, but my main focus was I did some documentary work on my travels while I was in London. As a student, the perspective is, as a student, what does a student go through? What does a student get to experience being that in London? And we say Europe. I actually didn't get to take a trip anywhere except for England and Scotland. Okay. There were other trips like that you could pay for beforehand to go with CCSA to go over to Paris, and I almost went to Paris on my own because it was only $60. But it would be an 8-hour drive there, and then, well, we had to take a ferry, of course.
And you'd rather hang out in the pubs. Hold on, we got to get to break. Hold on. When we come back, there'll be more here with Josh Maxwell talking about his trip to Europe. Stay with us.